The sponsor of today's interview is College Soccer's Next. College Soccer's Next is the #1 college soccer recruiting service focused on helping aspiring prospective student athletes achieve their dreams of playing college soccer. Some of the services that they're able to provide, I got to read them off the list, include a college soccer mentor who's gone through the recruiting process firsthand, a strength and conditioning coach, a sports nutrition coach, a professional highlight video editor, as well as a personal evaluation and strategic proven plan of action, as well as much, much more to make your dreams of playing college soccer turn into a reality. Book your free consultation call today down in the description at collegesoccersnext.com. Take your first steps at earning your college soccer scholarship today. Enjoy the episode, folks. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kickerball Podcast. I'm your host today, Danny Lang, and today we have a very special guest today with us, Dave Carton, the inaugural head coach of the expansion side Westchester Soccer Club into USL League One, launching in March 2025. Mr. Carton, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, Daniel. Thanks very much.
Of course. So, I mean, this is something, it's an interview that's a little closer to my heart than most other ones. I mean, I'm from Westchester County myself. When I saw that there's going to be an expansion side coming, I was so excited. I think the actual press released around May, or this past May, and then of course the announcement of yourself late in August. It's just been so nice to see this club grow, like, so, from my own personal area. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you, sir.
Yeah, no, me too. No, this is a surprise, obviously, Daniel, you're reaching out, but yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you and maybe giving you some insights and representing the club well here on your podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, thank you so much, sir. So, I guess just my first question right away is, how is the team building going right now? And that's not even specifically for player side, but I know there's even some sides that are still expanding on their front office and personnel staff. What does that look like since you've joined, and how much of this structure are, maybe is it different from Charlotte? I know we were talking a little bit about before, but what is this team building really look like of this club?
Well, there's a lot of steps to it. So, first of all, coming in, I guess part of the reason I was selected to take on this role was my experience already in the league. So I had a good familiarity level with the league, with the other teams, even in the situation where we've got 5 new teams coming in. Some of the clubs that are in League One are already very well established. They've got a lot of stability and consistency with their coaching staff. A lot of the players have been there for quite a while, and so it's I had a lot of familiarity with it. So when it came to, but also on the other side, it was important that I have a very strict and specific way of playing, and with that, then that makes it gives us a lot more guidance when it comes to recruitment. So the technical aspects of the player we want, the tactical abilities that we need from them, and then of course the physical aspects of them as well. And then a key, more of a key to it is actually when it comes to bringing in players that are going to be part of an expansion franchise, is have they got the right mentality for that? Because some players can jump into established clubs and there's already a culture established. There's already, there's a routine to how to do things. They've got experience in terms of the staff. So I saw that a lot at Charlotte with Mike Jeffries. I mean, everything was like he could do it with his eyes closed. But the large part of what we're doing here is bringing in players that understand that as an expansion franchise, it's not always going to be smooth. There's going to be a lot of front-facing things that are going to look, yeah, Westchester have got it all together, but of course there's always bumps in the road. So making sure we can bring in the right people with the right temperament, the right level of experience to know that we have to push through some rough times. And some of the expansion clubs that have come in recently have done a really fine job of that. I mean, one, Knoxville have done a great job, and even Spokane Velocity have been brilliant in terms of that, because it'd be guaranteed. It's just football naturally, Daniel, that Spokane they look like, on the outside, they look like a fantastic club, and they've got some great people there. But they would have experienced ups and downs, and they've managed them so well, and they got themselves to a great position, and they've got a great launch pad now. So for what they want to do in the future. So when it came to trying to start the process of building the team, like I said, as well, how we can identify the right people, the right players that fit how I want to play, and making sure that we had the way inside of the model of how we want to be in possession and out of possession and in transition moments, players that can be effective in attacking set pieces, defensive set pieces, making sure that there was varying levels of experience that could bring leadership to the team in tough moments, that could help maintain the culture that I want to create, the discipline standards that we want to create, and players that were used to those environments and could help players that maybe are not so used to them. And they would be players that will help me. They'll be one part of a leadership structure for me inside of the team that, when things are going wrong, I can lean on these players and their experience levels to help. So that's a lot of how we're trying to identify the players that we're bringing in. I mean, obviously we've covered a lot of ground with the players that we want to bring in. Not able to disclose any of them right now at this
No
moment,
problem.
obviously, but we're confident we're moving in the right direction. And like I said earlier, we're not rushing anything, but there is an urgency to how we're working. We know what we want. We're very deliberate and intentional about how we're going after it. And if some of our targets don't pan out, we're able to pivot quickly and move towards other targets that we have. And so that's a credit to the technical team that we've got together. I mean, our sporting director, Simon Baines, is incredibly hard worker and he's incredibly supportive. But on top of that, Kevin Grogan, who's got elite experience in the game, Sarah Hess, who one of the 99ers. I mean, she's got the most elite experience of any of us, and then Danny Decker, who helps us in our recruitment team as well. So Danny is still in the Netherlands at the moment. So we're working in a recruitment team inside of the guardrails of the game model we want, and then it's all about filtering out through different interviews with players, agents, and so on, who we want to bring in. So halfway there. Lots of miles still to go.
Yeah. And that really all just is a part of the process that us as fans aren't keen to, but it's just the trust to understand that all of this is going on around the clock. I know there were some people who were telling me, they're like, yo, so my buddy that I work with kickleball with, he was telling me, he was like, yo, Westchester doesn't even have their first kit released. Who's the head coach? Everything. I'm like, hey, look, just trust just trust what's going on behind the scenes, and then sure enough, it all ends up going out in the fold. But and then, so if you wouldn't mind, I would love to talk with you, just about like maybe one little bit deeper, just about the player recruitment level. I know you talked about technical and tactical ability, but when you have so many players coming out of college, or ones who are looking for a contract from USL One, or maybe USL Championship guys who are looking to prove themselves, with an expansion side again, and be able to be a part of that first culture, or even, international players who are looking to make the jump over. How in the world do you even, begin to filter out some of these guys? I gotta imagine that there's hundreds of them that you first started out with, just pages everywhere and getting that all going down. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love a little, as much insight as I'm allowed to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So going back to the game model that we want, right? So it's for each position on the pitch. All right, I've designed 10 key performance indicators for each position, and that's just maybe more in a technical aspect, a tactical aspect of what I want from them inside that position, which fits directly into the way we want to play in possession, or out of possession, or in transition. So, like I said earlier, like my experience in the league, and also experience with Mike Jeffries, we covered so much of these things that I did have a good foundation of knowledge of players that were in the league, and I kind of feel like I have an opinion, or a strong opinion, on players that can be a success. I could be wrong. That could blow up my face down the road, but that players that could be a success. But when from scouting the players, we see, okay, physically this guy fits. He's got technically and tactically, he fits the things we want. So now let's approach him. Let's see if he's interested in being part of what we're doing at Westchester. Early on, we took some big swings. We looked at some big swings but we wanted to do that early, to say, listen, we don't want to waste time. If we got some real high level players and said, listen, I want to stay in the championship, or I want to stay in the country they're playing in at the moment, then we wanted to get that conversation done, so we could just filter through that, simply just through that. But then it comes down to do they fit how we want to play? And then if they do, then obviously we approach them. What the next step then is then we have a conversation with them, just like me and you are having. Yeah, and it's just like, and I talk them through, here's why we've identified you. Here's what I see in you. Here's some things I think we can improve in you. And here's why I think you can be a success. And then we talk them through the type of mentality that we want. And we kind of challenge them on that. You know, we want to bring in one of the things that I'm really keen on is bringing in winners, guys that really want to compete every day. Understand that it doesn't just happen on game day. We can't just say we want to win. Is that you approach training, you approach your preparation with a view to how am I at the best version of myself going into my performance to win. All right, it's a sport, right? The outcome is to win. So we're not here just to play and that's not what we're here for. So bringing in guys that can respond to that, can respond to the demands that will be set on them. And then at the next, if they're agreeable to that, the next phase is then what's the personal situation? Are they married? Are they single? What's the finances going to be? Is it logistically possible? And then obviously with the international situation, and there's a higher level of scrutiny placed on the international players because we've got such a limited amount. So it's 7 international spots, and then we place higher scrutiny on them, but also because of the just with the immigration and visa process, we try and get our internationals done early so that we can, we can get through that process quickly and we can get them in for preseason and there's not a delay on that. So that's a lot of it. But to break it down, you asked how do you filter out thousands of players by having a very clear plan and having a real vision for how you want to play and will this player fit into how you want to play. And there's going to be some very good players that will go on to play at higher levels, maybe, or maybe play in different teams in the league, or going to MLS Next Pro, or wherever, that are very good players, but just weren't a good fit. Just like it's one thing bringing in, and this is the conversation I'm having with players, if we bring in players that are good players, but we want to bring in players that can play well together. And that's the key. How can they bring the best out of each other's qualities? And then how can they support each other's deficiencies in certain areas? So it's trying to piece that together. But because we have that plan, because we have that framework and structure of how we want to play and what we're looking for, particularly in each position, it's a little bit easier to be able to filter away and pair away. What will be hard will be, well, I mean, at our level, if we bring in players that are ticking all the same boxes, well, then it might come down to finances, it might come down to personal situations, it might come down to different things. But our personality or character level, those things might be the differentiators at the end. But at the end of it, we want people to want to come and be part of what we're doing at Westchester, want to compete and want to succeed, and not just someone who's saying, okay, I like to live in New York for a year and a half. We're really trying to avoid that kind of situation. We're doing our best to filter it. We might end up with guys like that, but so far we're confident that we haven't.
And that's such a huge piece that you were talking about with fit. And, I don't know if you would believe me if I told you that there are some environments that I've come across just in some interviews where they don't care so much about fit. It's just give me the 11 best players, throw them on the
Yeah.
pitch, we'll find their best position and we'll work it out from there.
Mhm.
And it's not from what I've seen, it's just not a successful model long term. Maybe you win 2 or 3 games in the beginning, but you are going to get gassed out because people are not experienced at certain positions.
Yeah, look, there's two ways of looking at that. So there's overall, if you've got say one centre midfield player that wants to play one way and another midfield player that wants to play another way, and they've got different views on the game, that's completely normal. But it's really up to us as a staff to make sure that we avoid that scenario. The other part of it is though that if we become players that are just too rigid and too stuck to the system of what we want to play, then we become too predictable, and that could down the road that could create problems. And then we kind of just have to continue to develop our model and make it more robust against opposition and things like that. But we're just taking the route that first things first, we have our framework, we have our plan, and then we bring in the players that fit in. Like you said, we want to avoid just bringing players in because they're good players and then trying to make a plan. I'm with you. I just don't. I would struggle to see that as a recipe for success long term. Like you said, because of the talent you bring in, you will win games. You will have an impact on the league. But I think as a coach, then you've always constantly trying to adapt and measure and like bring the best out of individuals in certain systems rather than players that fit into your system and that can play well together. I think you can cover a lot of ground early by approaching it that way. That's the way we want to approach it.
And so tell me about what do you think is going to make, I mean, so I'll get into a little bit of your Charlotte experience. And so for those who don't know, um, actually, you know what? I'll let you talk about your experience in the United States. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just hear your role with Charlotte and then, just the process of coming to Westchester. And then I'll ask another question after that.
Yeah, no problem. So when I arrived in Charlotte area in 2005. I played college soccer at Winthrop University, and I've been very fortunate along the way that a lot either the managers I've played with or the coaches I've worked with, I've always been able to land myself around a lot of experience, around the people who were able to um, one way or another, mentor me, guide me, set me on, move me into the right direction a lot of times. And my coach then was Rich Posapanko at Winthrop. And he was very good for me because I say all the time when I was arriving coming over to America, I was convinced I'm going to be the best player in America. There's no doubt about it. I found out very very quickly from Rich that I wasn't, and that was a really good grounding for me. And one of the things he always said is, your commitment to hard work and just get it done. No excuses, just get it done. And there's just two lessons that sound simple but are not very common.
Right.
People do look for excuses. People avoid hard work when they can, and don't find a way to get it done. Be accountable for what you're doing. And that was Rich at Winthrop really, really instilled that in a lot of the players. And still now he's as he left Winthrop, he moved into he's in an operations role at the Charlotte Independents at the moment. And he's a key cog in what they do on a day-to-day basis. He's a good character around. So after Winthrop, I said, okay, I want to get into coaching now. So I want to continue my career. I want to pursue a passion. My days of a player, I knew like coming out of Winthrop, I was 24 years of age coming out of Winthrop, and I knew, right, listen, that's old to start or to try and restart the pro career. So I was going into coaching, and I got fortunate. We're a local youth club, like lots of guys start off. It was Discovery Soccer Club in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I became the executive director there and worked really, really hard. But one of the pieces, and we grew the club, but one of the pieces to what I always wanted with a club was, and I saw a gap, was a lack of a pathway, a capstone program for youth clubs that, the path was to go into college and do our best to try and get them into the college game, and it still is. But I also felt that we could have adult football at Discoveries that could help the kids and give them the idea that there's something beyond U18 or U19. So we got in with the USL and had a USL 2 team. So I was the head coach of the USL 2 team there, and then I kind of worked. We had a development academy. We worked really really hard to really make the club like a significant player in the Carolinas and so on, and even in the region. And then what we did then is we eventually we merged with two other clubs in the area, the Carolina Rapids and Lake Norman Soccer Club, and that merge of three clubs formed the Charlotte Independence Soccer Club, which again became the youth affiliate to Charlotte Independence. So that completed the entire pathway, which again was a vision of mine, an entire pathway on the men's side at least, from through the youth, through the academy, into USL 2, into USL Championship at the time, but now USL 1. So I was very very proud of that. And then jumping into the role with Mike as his assistant, then that got me back into the elite level of football at the adult level, and then my hunger grew from there. And working with Mike, like Mike. Uh, the League One is and the Championship as well. It's got some tremendous coaches in it. I mean, there's really coaching talent in it. You see now with Eric Quill going into FC Dallas, and you see like Troy Lesane who's at DC United. There's some real top young coaches in the USL network. And Mike, when I worked with Mike, I realized like he's kind of like he had everyone around the entire league had so much respect for Mike, and they knew that Mike was one that, oh, I've got a problem, I'll call Mike. Mike can solve this for me. Mike will know the answer, And I from a little bit of distance, I saw that kind of role that Mike had, not only over me and the club, but like the rest of the league, you know. And there was a bit of a when teams would come to play against us. Mike would never admit this, but when there was teams coming to play us, there was a little bit of a deference from them towards him. You know, there was like, you know, I could feel it. Again, Michael never admitted this, but I
Right.
could feel it. I could see like these guys kind of know their place a little bit around Mike, and Mike is too humble to really embrace that. But so working with him, I just learned so much, and my as much as I do not want to discourage anybody from going down to coaching licenses, I've done all of mine, but I felt like my 3 years or 2.5 years with Mike was like pro license course. It was like this is how a team gets run. This is how you manage yourself. This is how you control your team. This is how you work with agents. This is how you manage the industry. This is how you manage the media. This is all of these things that Mike did expertly, and so it was that when, but I did when I saw him. It got to the stage in year 3 where I was like, "There's so much expansion to the league." I thought, you know what, it's probably time for me to see if take what I've learned and to bring it into my own career, my own head coaching career, and you know, add my own ideas and things to it. But I find myself now, even how I'm working, is, you know, if we're talking about players, I find myself saying something that Mike would have said. You know, I find myself saying like, there's something I'll say about a player, or I say, you know what, Mike would have said that, and so he had a huge influence on me. And then at the Charlotte Independence, our CEO was Thomas Finley. I mean, in terms of leadership and in terms of how to create a culture of excellence and commitment to values and things, he was a big influence as well. So my role as technical director with the Charlotte Independence, I worked with Thomas Finley as the CEO. So that was more on creating a culture, management, things like this. And then with Mike on the first team level, I was very fortunate to have him there. And then coming through when I first arrived with Rich Posapanko, and they're all still in the area. They're all still there. They all still put me on my place. If I go to watch Charlotte play now, they won't let me get carried away one bit. And and it was a very good grounding for me. And I don't think a lot of people are as fortunate as that. And so when it came to choosing the next path for me, it was, all right, well, where will I have the same support? Where will I have someone who's going to embrace the ideas I have? And I found it so far. I found it. I found it with Westchester and the people I have. They got so it's been like a 19-20 year pathway through to where me and you are talking at the moment, and I will see where it goes from here. So I'm excited for it. We'll see.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's always it's very exciting when you see not and this is me separate from being from the area, but I love the expansion that USL is still willing to go through year, or I say USL, but it's really, really on the individual club perspective, but how many people are still wanting to come into this system really year after year. But I know this is, again, this isn't your first time. It's not foreign to you from building a club in USL one, really from, having not much around and then being able to come into a system to do all of this recruiting back again. It's not a foreign process to you, and that's been part of your role with the technical, being a technical.
Yeah, yeah. So when the Charlotte Independents went from Championship to League One, so naturally all of the players that played in the Championship, they wanted to continue their career in the Championship. That's natural. That happens, and a lot of very good players found their way with Championship clubs. So it was an interesting scenario at the time because we had three players. We had three players starting preseason, and then obviously had trialists and trying to build a squad from there. And it was my first year, so Mike was trying to like build a plane while flying it, kind of a thing. So we our Brad Johnson, who's from the Westchester area as well, from New York as well. He worked at Iona. He was our goalkeeping coach. It was his first year. He's actually the goalkeeping coach of Sacramento Republic at the moment. It was his first year. It was my first year. So but what it did afford us, and me and Mike spoke about this quite a bit, was going from a model that the Independents were bringing in players like Christian Fuchs, bringing in players like Enzo Martinez, who was there for a long time, Brant Bronico, like Dane Kelly, these both players who were top players. When they moved on, it allowed us to kind of switch that focus towards more of a recruitment development model kind of piece, and utilize the academy more. So one of the statistics that I'm really proud of while I was there is that we brought 20 different academy contracts through into the independents. And six of them made first team appearances over the course of those 2 years. Not least of which was Jefferson Amaya, I mean, he was in the MLS draft last year. He's still at High Point University. So Jefferson is was made three starts as an academy contract, which at the time was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And so it allowed us to lean that, and it also allowed us to kind of move our international spots a little bit towards younger players. So we brought in Omar Cis, we brought in the year after we brought Luis Alvarez, the younger players that we thought, Ryan JJ, Denzel, all the players that we brought in that were younger that we thought we can develop these and improve them and surround them with a core of veterans. So we had Gabriel Obertan, we had Austin Pack, we had these players who were very high performers, had seen the game at a high level for a long time, surrounded them with youth and energy. And it was fun. And look, the first year was interesting because it was Charlotte FC's first year, and we had a relationship with them. It was like a player development relationship where we were bringing players on loan, and it was before MLS Next Pro, before Crown Legacy had started. And we had Koa Santos, we had Chris Haggart, we had Adrian Zendejas, and we had Quinn McNeil. And those were four players that came in. So automatically we had four stat players there. And then we had the players that we had. We built our rosters like that. And we got to the playoffs the first year, which was a really good achievement. Disappointed in the end because we thought we had more about us to go further. But in 2022, we got to the playoffs. 2023, we got to the final. With using the same model, we brought Joel Johnson in, Dane Kelly. We continued to build on that, and then obviously this year. So the model like switched, and it was really fun because we had three strands to how we were trying to build the team: the veterans, the young internationals, and the academy players. And it was a really nice blend. But again, it was a plan. We had a plan, and we we pivoted at times. There was times where opportunities came. We say, okay, we'll take him. Yeah, it's an opportunity. But there was a plan that we stuck to, and I like working in that kind of environment. So that's a lot of where like the time at the Independents when it came to building the roster. So not taking all of those facets into Westchester, but the idea of having a core of veterans, having a core like the spine of the team being players. Your international spots, I'm not going to focus so much on youth with the international spots, but I am going to really engage the academy, really engage local youth. So that's the other part is that to compare Charlotte to New York in terms of the amount of youth talent is not a realistic comparison because Charlotte's got 1.5 million people, and New York has what New York has. And even in the open tryouts that we've had 2 open tryouts, the level of amateur football in New York is so high. So the players that we've got to come out to some very, very good players that we obviously just have to pass on because we can't take everybody, but I truly believe they'll find their way. Like they'll find their way into the pro system somewhere. And and everyone with an interesting story. It's like we one 19-year-old came out, and I'm thinking, how's this kid not been picked up by somebody? So it's and he's playing amateur football in New York. So that's when it comes to the roster build. That hopefully that answer your questions about where our focus is and the direction that we're trying to take.
Yes, absolutely answers the question. And I really appreciate giving that insight, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things I was thinking about before I came on was,
Yeah.
we're talking about the youth players in New York. Was if you think around the world about, the real hotbeds of talent and population centers, and you think Paris, you think London, you think places like cities like this, right? Sao Paulo. You think of Mexico City. You think places where of high population centers that produce players by the truckload, and New York is the same. Like you just have to find it. And me and Gabby Overtown, we used to talk about it all the time about about some of the neighborhoods in Paris that where he was from, and some of the players that didn't make it, or some of the players that got to a high level and then for one reason or another, injuries or some things that kind of fell back down the ladder. But the initial um, kind of hotbed, the pool of talent that's in those cities and in those areas, it's hard to get your head around. But New York is like that. New York is just like that, and it's the amount of players that were coming to us now that have come through the Red Bull system or NYCFC. That's minimal in compared to the players that probably wouldn't have made those levels, but have got just as much talent, just as much ability, and
Nice.
you will find one. We'll find one that like, wow, this kid, and um, so that's another exciting piece of it. I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm forcing it, but I am kind of conscious of I want to find one. I want to find one that's going to be the player that was off the beaten path, and we took him in just because he was able to hone his talents in New York, and it's kind of a it's secondary, but it's kind of I want to make sure like I have to make sure that I don't get biased towards it when I'm selecting players. But I am curious to see if we can find somebody like that.
Oh my gosh, it's a spoil for riches, and you want to be able to curate what you've got here. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the spoils of New York, really.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, you could swing a cat and find and hit 11 outstanding footballers in New York, and it's just one. It's again, it's one of the fortunate pieces of of where we're located. So, but the other part too is in New York. I mean, if you find a kid that lives out in Long Island that's got all this talent, it's still an hour and a half drive up to Westchester. So so it's not, you might, it's not altogether like just because he's from New York, but there's possibilities. Let's put it that way, and there's potential to find one. And look, let's be real. This is the professional game, right? And if we can bring somebody in and we can turn them into something that creates value in a player, well, then they become an asset for the club, and we can't be afraid to talk about that either. That's the business side of the game.
So tell me about, I want to know about your coaching perspective. Not necessarily, I don't want to poke out for formations or anything like silly like that that's so tangible, but in terms of the day-to-day life of just being back into this expected coaching role, this head coaching role now where, you need to be very available, similar in the sense of a technical director where not all of your work is on the pitch or during these practices. Sometimes you need to pick up a call with a player uh, when someone just needs to express their thoughts or they want to talk with you about something. In terms of just that day-to-day coaching role, how do you plan on just reintegrating yourself, into this head coaching role again?
Yeah, so the day today is you know, like I've said to you, what we're saying to all the players, when it comes to if you put your football actions or your football week into 100% or 100%, 90% of that is training. 10% is the game, right? So 90% of what you're doing during the week is on the training field. So the importance of creating um, the standards that you want, and then maintaining them. It's look, the sometimes like if you understand what you really really want and you put a real value on discipline, and you think that there's no superstars here, that everyone the team is the superstar, and that everybody works for the team, everybody works for each other, and you're creating togetherness within a group. That's great, right? That's the goal. But it's very easy for that to break. So if I can sit in front of players and I can say, listen, these are the standards, this is the discipline, if you're late, this is this. If you're blah, 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 this is this. But I have to be consistent with that. So if I want to create the togetherness, the unity within the team, the consistency of how we behave, and the standards we set, I have to be married to those standards. So I need to make sure that I am the standard bearer for that. So on a day-to-day basis, players need to know that I've got authenticity, that they can believe in me, that they can trust me, but also that I'm genuine. I think players are very, very, very quick and bright and perceptive if a manager or a coach is not authentic. They'll see through you. And if you say one thing and do another, they're going to see through you. And that is a surefire way to lose all belief from the team. So consistency, being authentic, these are things that are massively important. Like this one thing, I can stand in front of a group and have all this charisma and inspire them to run through a wall for me, go through that door without opening it for me, all that kind of stuff. Like these kind of things. But on a like you asked about the day to day, it needs to be consistent. The standards need to be held and maintained. Because I read a really good book once, and it's just about leadership, and it's not rocket science to say that, you know, your standards are not what you preached or what you tolerate. So if you tolerate lower standards, that's the new standard. So it's very, very important that the players come in with a heightened level of professionalism, understanding that we're trying to create a culture of excellence and a winning environment. And to do that, we need on a day-to-day basis, like you said, is that we respect the rules, abide by the rules, and maintain the standards that we're setting. And that's up to I can't let that drop. The minute I let that drop, then the players are going to let it drop. I have to be the leader in that scenario. So that's something that's consciously weighing through. Every coach can put on good training sessions. Every coach can get the most out of players on the training. What's most coaches can. There's so many people that can really come in and they can put on a good PowerPoint, present to a team, and say, yeah, talk all these buzzwords. But on a day-to-day basis, you've got to maintain your belief in the standards that you're trying to set. And if they drop, you can put the flashiest PowerPoint on the wall you want. You can have the flashiest team talks, all that. None of it matters because the players are not going, they're going to see through you and they're going to know that you are not genuine. And that's really the strength in what we're trying to set here with Westchester. And as that gets out, football is a small world.
Yeah.
So, players talk and it'll be okay. Well, Dave's creating at Westchester, they're creating this environment. Wow, every day, like we're training on the edge. It's a blood sport up there every single day in training. And that will get out. And maybe some other clubs will have the same environment, maybe some won't. But I fully believe that the real professionals want to be a part of that. They
Yeah.
want to, and look, they might not admit it to themselves because they might walk away from training and say, "I can't listen to that guy anymore. That guy, I mean, that guy's so full of it, blah blah blah." Or I make a bad refereeing call, and all of a sudden they're crying to themselves and whatever, and they're not liking me for 24 hours. We live with that because it's not. It's about the respect we have, and we have a common goal, a common mindset, and that's just part of it. That's just part of it. None of us are there to be liked. We're all there to achieve a goal and to be respected. And at the end of it, if we've all got the common mindset and we all want to achieve the same goal, we will like each other because we will rely on each other. And that's how it'll build. So um, again, going to you asked about the day today, I'm very conscious of that. Is that my performance level is at the highest level it can be on a daily basis. And I'm demanding that of everybody around me, the players, the goalkeeping staff, the performance staff, the assistant staff, the sporting director, everybody around me, like, guys, we do this at the highest level we can. And we'll see where we go.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, I think, and so I'm just wondering, with all of the experience and all the knowledge that you've come to understand really just about the coaching perspective, it's not something that comes up. I have to imagine that it really does come through experience and being around the right people. Um, with certain, I mean, I imagine that there were a lot of coaches who were, I don't know how the application or if there was an application process if Westchester had you in mind and ended up working out that way, but, how do you convey, was this something that you were trying to convey in the application process for Westchester to be at the position that you're at now, or was this something that, they saw in you consistently and now, of
Yeah,
course.
that's a good question. You have to ask them. I think what the leadership was looking for was, well, first and foremost, someone like Simon says a lot, someone that had league experience, someone who knew, because it's not all glamour. It's not like there's some away trips and stuff on, like it's tough, and someone had experience of that. You could bring someone who's a much finer coach than me, who's working at higher levels and is used to chartered flights to games and stuff like that. That's just not our league. So I think, as well as like being able to evaluate the players and know the level of competition, I think also was someone who was in it. Someone was in the USL League One environment or the Championship environment. So the first one I met Simon, it was more about trying to just chat through who I was, right? Who, what I felt of my idea of football, how I felt it should be played. Um, and it wasn't so much about specifics, but it was more about Simon and Danny Decker getting a feel for, is this guy able to lead what we're trying to build? And then for me, I was trying to get a feel of, how serious are these guys? There's been a lot of championship or a lot of League One expansions and stuff. How serious are they? Are they, do I want to make the move? Because I'm very comfortable with
Right.
Mike. I've got a great education here with Mike. I really have a lot of trust in Thomas, my CEO. I've got a great situation. Do I want to make the move? And so then the next step was then I ended up in New York. I met the ownership. I met Mitch, and I was, I was there. I was like, yeah, look, I flew up to New York and I met with them. And what really attracted me to Mitch was I really saw someone who I had a common mindset with. We're not necessarily the same person, but he wants to win. He's competitive. He wants to be the best version of ourselves all the time. And what I really was mindful of is kind of not so much what I wanted to hear, but what I didn't want to hear. And I didn't want to hear someone to say, Dave, come on in, we look after you, and it's, just play good football, and let's do our work in the community, and then I'm like, yeah, let's do that as well, right? Yeah, let's do all that stuff as well. Like that's part of it, but I want to know that you're there to support me when we want to win. We want to be the best team in the league. Look, will we be? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we will. I don't know. I don't know if we'll be. I don't know where we'll finish. Who knows yet? But I know where I
Come on,
want
you
to
guys.
finish. And but the point being is I know where I want to finish, and I know where. And anyone who says they don't want to win, Daniel, don't believe them. Don't anyone. They're just buying themselves time. And I'm not that. Everybody wants to win. So the question is, are you willing to do the things that put the work in? Are you willing to put the commitment cost in and all these things to achieve it? So if the ownership reflects that, then I can reflect that onto the players. Then the players need to respond to that, and that's where I really feel okay. I can align with these guys, and I'm really big on alignment. I need to be able to see that you're looking at the same thing I am, and that we have different varying opinions on how to do it, how to get there, but we are looking at the same things in the same way. And so when I'd met Mitch, I came away from that going. I spoke with my family, and I spoke with everyone that I was connected with down in Charlotte. And I was like, this it's a jump, it's a leap. It is a leap, but the fact that it's a clean slate, I can set my own culture. I have alignment with the ownership, with the sporting leadership, and the people that they wanted to bring in. The facilities that we're going to move into, I'm very, very pleased with. And those are things I think, yeah, I can get going here. So that was really it. And then we made the decision then in August, and so that was August, yeah. And then the announcement with the Charlotte players, and then the announcement online, and things like that. So and then since then it's just been full steam ahead. No.
What I think is interesting about what you said, though, too, at least with just having the conversations with with Mitch and the rest of staff, was not what you wanted to hear, but what you didn't want to hear. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
sometimes it's difficult with, I think it's applicable in most places though too, because there's one sentiment that comes to mind that I've always been critical of, and it I say it specifically with me because it happens with applying to colleges, but they talk about students will give testimonies and they'll say, "Oh, I knew I wanted to be around like-minded people to be able to look at and get my jobs done." And it's
yeah,
not as attractive as a sentence as you think that is. So I think it's
yeah.
always very important to understand that difference of what you do and what you don't want to hear. And you know that firsthand, though. I'm not saying,
Yeah. Well, look, and again, like Mike was great, and Mike gave me a lot of guidance going into the interview process. That the things to be wary of, the things to look for. Our ownership that we had that Charlotte was with Dan D'Amico, is a strong leader as well, and he was giving guidance. So I was very much supported. And the bit we then went going to meet the new owner with Mitch was, like I said, I know what I want, right? I know what I want, and so it was kind of a little game. I say a chess game back and forth the table, but it was Mitch is a very passionate guy. He's got a ton of energy, and I respond to that. I respond to that. That doesn't scare me off, and it doesn't. Also, he's got grand vision for the club, where he wants to bring it, what he wants to do, what he wants it to represent in the community, and that didn't scare me off. So there was nothing that Mitch said that I thought I can't work for this guy. Nothing. And there was actually times where I was saying to Mitch, there's going to be times where you're going to want more from the team. The team's going to maybe not produce at the time, and I'm going to need your support, Mitch. I'm going to talk me off the ledge. So it's going to be times where me and him are going to have that relationship. And then with the sporting director as well, with Simon, like such a hard worker, so committed to what we're trying to do, and he really is throwing himself into being a sporting director because it's a new role for Simon as well, and he's enjoying the growth. So there's a lot of excitement and forward motion to everything. But just to your point, like I was just there was things I didn't want to hear from Mitch, and and I never heard any of it. So I didn't want to, like I say, I didn't want to hear, I'm not sure we're just a first year franchise. It'll be okay if we lose and stuff. I'm like, that's not for me. It's not for me. That's not the way the direction I want. That's not the environment I want to work in. I don't want to walk away from not hitting the standard and saying, well, it's all right. Like it has to be all right because you have to move on. But I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel that it's not that wasn't for me. But Mitch, again, with where Mitch really impressed me was, this is what I want. If you're going to be the guy, can you deliver it? And that was a challenge that he put on me. And I'm like, yeah, that's I can buy into that.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, oh, there's so much. It's such a, I feel like the game, not the game, but the environment off of the pitch, at least in the front office, in the coaching realm, across all divisions, is such a social and sometimes it's a little more difficult to navigate, but I think it's still something that if you have the right support system and the right guidance, and you talk about the support that you had from Charlotte between Mike and Daniel as well. But I mean, it really just is about getting and gaining perspective to understand, okay, well, how to be this better coach, to be a better person for players, to have a better relationship with owners and everyone of the league.
Yeah, yeah, and it's first of all, we have to be honest with each other all the time, right? All the time. And again, honesty doesn't necessarily mean truth. Like it's just what you believe to say, you say it so that there's no that we understand each other. So if there's something to be said, we say it. And that's the same that goes from the recruitment team that we've got with myself, Danny, Kevin, Simon, and Sarah, to the volunteer staff that we've brought on, to Mitch, obviously the owner, and then down into the players. Am I happy with if I'm not happy with your performance, I can choose to tell you I am, but I'm not going to choose that. We need to be honest with each other. And if I feel I can get more from you, I was like, Daniel, if you're playing for me, if I feel I can get more from you, Daniel, you can give me more.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that's really important that players really need to understand is there's going to be an underlying philosophy. There's an underscoring philosophy of every individual can improve. It doesn't matter if you're a volunteer, if you're a center forward, if you're a goalkeeper, if you're a head coach, if you're whatever. If everybody has that mindset that I can still improve, that affects how I give information, but also affects how you receive it. And if you and trust is built in. Well, Dave is just saying this to make me better. And I'm just saying this to Dave because I think I can improve this part of our team. So if we're able to embrace that we trust each other, that we're always being honest with each other, then the trust is built and we'll go an extra little bit further for each other. And that has to be, we have to be strong enough to commit to that. We can't be afraid if we feel like we need to say something to hurt people's feelings. We need to be respectful. We need to make sure that everything's professional. But it's also like, listen, if you got something to say, we have to say it. We have to say it. You can't go into a corner and talk to somebody else about it. That's a culture killer for a team. So make sure that there's an open and transparent relationship from the owner all the way down to the head coach and then into the team. That's how we have to operate if we're going to enjoy our work. Otherwise, it's going to be, it'll fracture, it'll break. And I've seen it happen too often. At the highest level, clubs in England, you can see there's obviously a fracture in culture that's going on. You can see it,
Yeah.
and then you can see it even in under 10 teams. So making sure that unity and togetherness is always there and the trust is built. And I think simply just by being honest with each other all the time. And there's no second guessing each other, there's no doubting each other. And that's the piece off the field that you're talking about in the front office, on the field, and so on. I think is really valuable.
And so I think it definitely is the culture and the communication and this flexibility is definitely more malleable in these expansion clubs just because you're starting from uh, uh, um what's square one. I don't want to I
Yeah.
was gonna say point zero, but where did that but square one and then building everything up from there. But and I don't know the relationship that you have now, if there is one with certain players as we move forward but with my perspective is that there's no one signed, there's no player that's in the room, and I don't know if it's true or not, whatever that ends up being, we don't have to get so far into that. But my question is sometimes instilling that culture can be difficult when you're bringing players in for the first time, and this is the first time that any of them really are playing in this specific professional environment. So
Yeah.
there will be growing pains, but you know, there may be growing pains. I don't want to suggest anything, without knowing the club and the players and everything that you're bringing in. But um, my question would really just be for you, and then we'll get into a few other little things that's just about looking forward in the future. But where do you start in building that relationship more with the players? I have to imagine that it's before that they're officially signed.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, yeah. And there's somewhere where we've been really transparent and open with them and had these kind of conversations with them, and they might not even sign. So the for a lot of us knowing, understanding each other, where they're from, what their doubts about themselves are, what their is their career on an upward trajectory, or is it they've stalled a little bit coming down, and understanding what they want from themselves in their career. The when every player will want to get to the highest level they can. Yeah, whether they deep down have it in them to do it, it's remains to be seen. But when they tell me, I want to be an international footballer for such and such country, or I want to play in the MLS, or I want to this, I tell them, I say, you need to be really careful, because that's the stick I'll beat you with. You say that you want to do this, it's going to come back around when you drop your standards and your performance level. Because I'll be saying to you, then, Daniel, we had this conversation. We had this conversation. You said you wanted to be this. You're not getting there like this. And then but what I know myself too is that goes both ways. If I've got ambitions for myself as a head coach, or if I want to do things with this club that are going to allow us to win, I can't say that and then drop my standards.
Yeah.
So that's where the players can go back on me and say, listen, coach, we had this conversation. So it's from the get-go, we have to have a clear understanding of each other's, what do you want from this? Like, what is your ambition here? Because I know what mine is. And if yours is, I'm from New York and I just want to pick up a check and I just want to play football, I said, listen, we're going to clash. You might have all the talent in the world, but there's going to be conflict, because I'm going to put together 24 other players that don't have that same vision for this. And you're going to be on the outside of it. You need to, again, I'll go back to the word alignment. We need to want the same things. I want the same things for each other. So if I want to have a winning club and business that's able to make a mark on the league, then I need to have players that want to perform to do that for me. And then if I've got players that want to be playing in Europe, or they want to again make their international debuts, or they want to whatever they want to do, then I've got to want that for them. And then that's where that's where we meet. That's where it's all going to happen. And if we want different things, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. So the assumption is that every player coming in will respond to the demands that's put on them, will be completely driven and competitive from the get-go, and we assume that. It's a wrong assumption. Sometimes they're going to need support, sometimes they're going to need to be stretched, sometimes there's different things that give and take throughout the season. But the key is that I said earlier, there's an underlying philosophy that every player understands, that we all have this growth mindset to get better all the time. That's how we receive information, but also that there's an alignment in what we want from each other. And that's sincere and that's genuine. And we hold our feet to the fire to that. So if you set a goal of having the most watched podcast in the country, Daniel, right? And then all of a sudden you're skipping, oh, I'm not going to do it this morning, I'm not going to do that, then that's not going to work, right? That's where I hold your feet to the fire. Yeah, it's not the accountability we want. So that's first and foremost, that there's alignment in what we want from each other. And then it'll build. And then it'll build. There's going to be conflict. Sometimes that's good. It's a lot of time. That's good. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but the togetherness that we build, the trust we build, the belief we build, and in that alignment that we want for each other, what we want, that's what's going to carry us through tough moments. And I think that's what's going to be important. And that's the vision, that's the goal of the team. The club has we want to be the best in everything we do as the club. That's the vision for the club. But for the team, that's what we want from square one, as you said.
So I gotta ask, I mean, how do you envision this Westchester Soccer Club team, in the next few months? Of course, it's gonna be a lot of player building and with the season opener in March. I think around this time, at least in the month of March, so we've got what, 4 months out until
Yeah.
the inaugural season. Of course, it's gonna be a lot of calculated chaos, as we've talked about as well, but you know what are you envisioning seeing Memorial Field like for the first time with so much yellow and blue out in the stands and your players ready to march out for the first 90?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I'm open for the entire community to be behind it, and there's thousands of people in attendance, and there's so much traffic issues because everyone's trying to get to the game and all these kind of things. I'm hopeful for it to be a real groundbreaking moment for the community and something that not just Westchester, but there's like people from other communities in New York are interested in. What I'm already anticipating is that there's going to be a lot of emotion attached to that first game, and from everybody, right? From the ownership to the community to the staff to the players. So my job on that day will, and in the run up to it, will be to manage the emotion, make sure it's channeled right. Because at the end of it, we can get carried away with the event and with the occasion and with this is great for Westchester, but we've got a job to do on the night. We're on the clock. We've got to make sure that we're professional and that the emotion is all channeled in the right way. And then after it, we've won 3-0 at home, and we're celebrating with the fans, and everything is great. That's what I'm hoping for. But also, I'm also realistic that it might not be that way. So right now, I'm just looking at the first game, as you asked, managing, making sure that all of the players have a clear understanding of what we want. I don't have any with the players we're bringing in. I don't have a doubt that they can adapt to the football we want to play. It's more about managing the occasion, have a clear plan of how we want to attack the opposition, a clear plan of how we want to defend against that particular opposition, and then managing emotions from there. And again, our team being the best version of themselves going out on day one. And from there, whatever that is, what I really want is that whatever performance we put in on day one is that's the worst we'll ever be. And everything from there is better. That's the message I want them coming out saying, guys, right now, that's our standard. What's it going to be from now on? And we grow and build on that. And we will never see a Westchester team, worse than the one we see on day one. And it's always about growth and growth and growth. So that's really what I want from day one. I don't want I don't want fans like first day half a game in and they're saying Carton out. I don't want
Right.
that. But I do think that there's such a vibe around the area that the community is embracing the club. There will be a lot of energy to it, but just like I said, my job on the night will be manage that, make sure the players um, go out with a good urgency and energy about them, but a positive energy and doing things in the right way.
I mean, wow, it's been a pleasure to be able to talk with you about this club and just about your insights and your experiences though too. But another thing I want to ask though too, I mean, I don't know if you're living in Westchester proper, but I mean, I want to know how is just adjusting to the personal life of the area been. It's sure different than Charlotte and
No, it's different. All right. So I haven't relocated yet. So I've just been up, every couple of weeks. I'm up there for a few days and getting things, especially with the tryouts and stuff. It's a beautiful area, and it's like it's where it's all connected, all the different towns and cities
yeah.
connected. And so and then just how diverse it is, and it's just I'm just really looking forward to like immersing myself in that. Like me and my wife, we always said about like the idea of living in New York. We love the city, we love the area, and when this came, we were like, yeah, she has family up there, so it kind of all kind of um made sense as we went through it, and so but the people so far have been very welcoming, and there's so much to do in New York, Daniel. Like, I mean, it's there's so much around the place. I always describe it as like, the heartbeat of the world. So I'm really excited to get into it and obviously make a name for myself there, but also to carry the club. And one of the like there's going to be days where so to imagine a U.S. Open Cup draw against New York Red Bull away, or New York City away, or something like that, and that can happen in year one. I mean, look at like what Rhode Island are doing this year, like so it can happen, and we can dream about that, and um. That'll just be a moment where I think you know we'll be able to showcase what the club is doing, and that's very possible. That's not impossible. So, um, those are things for the fans to really get excited about, and to really engage themselves in, and one of the pieces that the players will, which is really non-negotiable, is they're going to have to immerse themselves in the community too. You know, there's going to be people who come in that are from different parts of the world. That there's going to be communities in New York that they can be household names. So that's what we want as well. So all of that is like moving parts, and you start dreaming about some of these things, and your mind can wander. I'll leave that piece up to the ownership. Obviously, I've got the day to day to deal with, but there's all of those possibilities, Daniel.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, and then another thing I want to ask though too. I mean, firstly, I mean, I love the insight though too, and speaking about New York though too. I mean, there's going to be a pocket for whether it's in Westchester or New York or Long Island or any of the surrounding areas. There's going to be a pocket of fans. I think for each player that you've got on
Yeah,
this team. Yeah.
yeah. No, I've been experiencing it like because um been up there. I mean, my wife is from Dominican Republic, and she's got so the Dominican community up there, and then there's so I'm very aware of that. And then whether it be the Jamaican community, the Colombian community, the Salvadorian community, German community, like it's just Irish community. Like there's so many that we can reach out to and embrace, and hopefully they'll embrace us. I really feel they will. We do things right and represent the community like we should, play the right football, play the game the way I think is going to excite people. Then I think we're on to a winner.
So if you don't mind me asking, what part of Ireland are you from? I went back. I went to go see the country for the first time, and I'm from. My family's from Knocknagashaw. So if you don't mind.
Well, so I'm from Wexford in the southeast. I'm from a very very small town called Bunclody
Oh.
in County Wexford. So and I that's all my family are back there. So I get back there once a year and spend Christmas there. And it was perfect to be the perfect place for me to be brought up, and it suited me so well. I was lucky too. I was in like a generation of people that were very very athletic, and they were in a lot of sports, and so all of those things really lend themselves to a really good upbringing. And like when I left in I said 2005. So I obviously I played for my hometown Bunclody, and then I went to Trinity College. I played there for a year. Ended up at Bray Wanderers, which is a fantastic. I spent 2 years at Bray Wanderers, which is a great club. And it's a funny story is while I was there, actually, Northern Colorado's coach Eamon Zaid was playing there at the same time. So so it's funny how things work out. But then from there, then I kind of realized, okay, I still need to pursue a passion, and continue the fact of continuing my education and so on. So I took the opportunity to come to the States, and I haven't looked back. But I did leave family there, and I miss them all the time, but they're very excited for all of this, and the a lot of I heard Alex Ferguson say recently that so much of who you are is where you're from, and I believe that. I believe a lot of the grounding I have is comes from parents, my friends, family, all of those things, and the town itself that I come from is a beautiful little town, and um, so yeah, that's where I'm from, and I don't apologize for it. I'm very proud of it.
You shouldn't. I mean, it's shaped the the person I've been able to talk to, fortunately, for the last I mean, I guess hour to this point, and it's been a great conversation up to that point. And you've got you're gonna make a lot of Westchester, New York native people really excited just by some of the things that I've been able to hear from you first, but thankfully everyone else is gonna be able to listen to later on. But Mr. Carton, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk with you, sir.
Ryan, absolute best of luck with everything you're doing, and let's do it again sometime.
Yes, sir. Sounds great. We'll call it after the season, after the
Absolutely.
championship
Yeah. Yeah.
season.
Championship game. Yeah. Thanks, Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Chat soon.
Yep.